Well, of course, the world has changed a lot in the quarter century since Newt Gingrich, the last Speaker of the House to visit Taiwan. He touched down in Taipei in April of '97. So with more on why now, we are joined by Leland Vittert, host of NewsNation's On Balance. So, Leland, thanks for joining us here. Let's start there. What is the point of this trip? Why now?
In fairness to Speaker Pelosi, she has been confronting the communists in Beijing for 30 years. She went to Tiananmen Square and unfurled a banner there a year after the democracy protests, really sticking an eye in the thumb of the communists. So this has been a long-standing view of hers about confronting China over Taiwan. There's a lot of Taiwanese in her district. So a lot of points here for her. Very simply, China continues to get closer and closer to taking over Taiwan by force. American policy, which according to the White House has not changed, is that Taiwan should determine on their own whether they remain a free and independent country or reunify with the Chinese. Communist Beijing wants it back. And continues to say that they might be willing to reunify it by force. And her going there is an idea and an attempt to underscore just how important it is to the United States that Taiwan stay free, not only for democracy, but for our own personal best interest of the United States.
Yeah, so we mentioned Gingrich's visit 25 years ago. Talk about, how have the circumstances changed? What is different from his trip versus Pelosi's trip?
Well, when Gingrich visited, those pictures back from 1997, just a year before 1996, the Chinese had gotten aggressive and started firing missiles at Taiwan. The United States Navy was sent in by President Clinton. They parked 2 aircraft carrier battle groups off of the Chinese coast, and that ended things because China really was not able to do anything. The U.S. was the unquestioned military superpower, and China's military just didn't stand a chance, so they backed down. That's no longer the case, and it's no surprise that a couple of weeks ago, the Chinese test-fired some of their hypersonic missiles again, and the Chinese Communist mouthpiece, the Global Times, released video of some of those tests just a day or so ago.
Yeah, so speaking of those tests, we know that Gingrich really calls these threats a bluff, but what other consequences could we potentially see here?
Well, you think about Putin's price hike. That will look like an economic blip or a rainstorm compared to a Category 5 hurricane economically, if there's even a skirmish in the South China Sea. A quarter of the world's trade, everything we buy, goes through the South China Sea. So get ready, in other words, economically. And there's some economic pressure points that the Chinese have. The real risk here, if you talk to military experts, we're going to dive into this on the show later, is miscalculation. You now have the U.S. military, the Reagan Aircraft Carrier Battle Group, along with a lot of the Chinese Navy, and they now have a larger Navy than the United States does, squaring off in an area smaller than Lake Michigan. Wow. The potential for miscalculation here in one happy People's Liberation Army colonel who decides to be a little too patriotic, and we could have a ball game way too quickly.
Oh, yes, certainly. All right, Leland Vittert, thank you so much for weighing in. And, of course, we will be tuning in tonight at 7, 6 Central for On Balance with Leland Vittert. Well, thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.